The first time I saw him, he was standing under the hallway light still, silent, staring. The only reason I knew something was wrong was because the light cast shadows from everything around him, except him. This happened 3 years ago, but even now, I still check the floor whenever someone approaches me to make sure they have a shadow. At the time, I was working the overnight shift at a small rural hospital. It was the kind of place where the halls echoed when you walked and the air always smelled faintly like antiseptic and something metallic. Night shifts were usually quiet. Patients slept, nurses charted paperwork, and I made my rounds. But there was one hallway everyone avoided after 2 a.m. Hallway East. The lights there flickered sometimes, the temperature dropped for no reason, and occasionally, patients swore they saw someone walking past their door, even when no one was scheduled on that side. We brushed it off as exhaustion, medication effects, or paranoia, until the night I met him. It was around 2:47 a.m. I remember the exact time because I glanced at my watch just before it happened. I was walking toward Hallway East, shining my flashlight, checking doors like usual. That's when I saw him. A man standing at the very end of the hall, facing me. He wore a long coat, dark and old-fashioned, and his posture was unnaturally straight, like he was being held upright by invisible strings. His head was tilted slightly downward, as if he was studying me. At first I thought he was a visitor who had gotten lost. I raised my flashlight, "Sir," I called out. He didn't move, so I took a few steps closer. That's when I noticed it. The fluorescent light above him cast clear shadows across the floor from the door frames, the equipment, even the cables on the wall. But beneath the man, nothing, no shadow, no shape, just empty floor. My chest tightened. I blinked hard, thinking maybe it was just the angle or a trick of the light. I took another step. "Sir, are you okay?" Slowly, so slowly it felt deliberate, he lifted his head and locked eyes with me. His eyes were wrong. Too dark, too deep, like looking into a tunnel that never ended. Then he smiled. It wasn't friendly. It wasn't human. It was a slow, widening stretch of his lips that showed far too many teeth. My instincts screamed at me to run, but my body wouldn't move. It felt like gravity had thickened around me, like the air grew heavy. Then he spoke. His voice wasn't normal. It echoed like multiple people speaking at once, all whispering through the same mouth. "You shouldn't see me." My throat tightened. I forced out a shaky whisper. What? His smile twitched. "Not yet." I stumbled back, my knees nearly giving out. Then the lights flickered, not just around him, but down the entire hall. A cold gust of air rushed past me, strong enough to push my body backward. And just like that, he was gone. No walking, no fading. One blink, and the hallway was empty. I actually ran back to the nurse's station. I tried to explain what I saw, but the words sounded insane even to me. One nurse, an older woman who had worked there for decades, didn't laugh. She went pale. Quietly, she asked, "Did he have a shadow?" When I shook my head, her hand trembled as she covered her mouth. She finally leaned in and spoke so softly I almost didn't hear her. "You're not the first, but if he spoke to you, you might be the last." I didn't work the rest of that shift. I left early. For weeks, everything felt normal, until patients started reporting someone standing in their room at night, a man in a long coat, facing the corner, or standing near their bed, or watching from the doorway. Every description matched him, and every single time there was no shadow. Some patients woke up screaming, insisting he leaned close and whispered something in their ear. One elderly patient with dementia pointed at the empty doorway and muttered, "He's waiting for the one who saw him." I tried to convince myself it was a coincidence. Hallucinations, the mind playing tricks. But then it escalated. I started seeing him outside the hospital, reflected in windows, standing across the street, watching from behind trees, always still, always silent, always without a shadow. The last time I saw him was 2 months ago. I was sitting alone in my apartment, lights on, trying to convince myself I was fine. Then 3 soft knocks came from my hallway. I opened my front door slowly. He was standing there, closer than ever. No smile this time, just those hollow, endless eyes staring straight into mine. And before I could move, before I could scream, before I could even breathe, he whispered, "Now you're ready." The lights flickered, and he vanished. I don't know what he meant. I don't know why he chose me. And I don't know when nor if he'll come back. But some nights when the room is quiet, I hear footsteps behind me, and there's never a shadow. If this story made your skin crawl, hit like, drop a comment, and subscribe for more true horror stories, because somewhere out there, someone else is seeing him too.
The maternity ward of our hospital has been closed for 8 years, but every now and then, in the dead silence of night, the baby monitors still turn unmanned. Someone, or something, starts crying. I work the night shift as security at a mid-sized hospital on the east side of town. I've been here for just over 2 years, and most nights are quiet, even boring. The halls are dim, the vending machines hum, and the janitors mop in silence. But there is one part of the building no one likes walking past: the old maternity ward on the 5th floor. It opened in the early 90s and was shut down after a gas leak caused a fire. No more babies died, but several mothers and staff members were injured, and the hospital never reopened that section. The wing was sealed, and everything inside was left almost exactly as it was: cribs, drawers, monitors, and equipment. I didn't believe any of the rumors about that floor until last winter. It was around 2:50 in the morning. I was halfway through my shift and sitting in the security office, watching the screens. Most cameras showed empty hallways and dark rooms. Then one monitor caught my eye. Camera Lima Bay, maternity wing. At first, I thought the screen was glitching. The room lights were still off, but something had changed. A small signal icon blinked in the corner of the feed. It took me a second to recognize it. A baby monitor was connected. I frowned. Those devices shouldn't even work anymore. The power had been cut to that section years ago. I leaned closer. A soft, faint sound came through the speaker, static, mixed with slow breathing. Not crying. Just breathing, like a newborn sleeping. I stared at the screen, waiting for it to stop. It didn't. At 3:02 am 12 minutes later, I heard it. A baby crying. Not faint, not distant. Loud and sharp, echoing through the static. I froze. It sounded real, like an actual newborn desperate for attention. My radio crackled. It was the other guard, Mark. "Hey, are you hearing that?" he asked. I swallowed. "Yeah." "Where's it coming from?" "Camera cinco, bites and silence." Then he said something that made my skin crawl. "That wing's power isn't on." I already knew that. 20 minutes passed. The crying didn't stop. In fact, it got worse. Sometimes it sounded closer, other times like it was coming from across the room. Once, there was even giggling, soft, wet, too close to the microphone. Mark and I argued about checking it out. He refused. I should have, too, but curiosity is a dangerous thing. At 3:27 a.m., I grabbed my flashlight and badge and made my way up. The elevator doors opened, and instantly I felt something wrong with the air on the 5th floor. It was freezing cold, not the kind of cold from bad insulation, but something sharp and unnatural. The hallway was dark, except for the faint red glow of the emergency exit signs. The crying had stopped, but the monitor signal was still active. My footsteps echoed as I walked to the sealed maternity ward door. A chain was wrapped tightly around the handles. A faded tape sign hung crookedly across it. "Do not enter." I raised my flashlight, expecting nothing, but the moment the beam hit the small window, someone moved behind it. A shadow. Fast. Small. Like someone stepping out of view. I stumbled backward, heart pounding. I lifted the light again, but the window showed only darkness. Then the crying returned. Loud, immediate. Like the baby was right on the other side of the door. I backed away, but the crying changed. It became a scream, not a wail. A scream of pain. Or anger. Or both. Something inside the room slammed against the door, hard enough that the chain rattled. I ran. I don't even remember hitting the elevator call button, only how long it felt before the doors opened. As I stepped inside, the crying stopped instantly. Silence. But just before the doors shut, I heard whispering from the hallway. A woman's voice. Soft, close. "Please don't leave us." I didn't sleep after my shift. I barely spoke about it. I tried convincing myself it was an old recording or interference from another device. But then it happened again. Not once, not twice, but every night at exactly 3 a.m. The crying, the giggling, the breathing. Sometimes we hear soft tapping on the sealed door. Sometimes footsteps. 2 weeks ago, the screen showed something new. The crib in the room had been moved closer to the camera, and now, every night, the blanket inside it rises and falls, like something is still breathing underneath. The hospital refuses to investigate. They say it's old, damaged equipment reacting to interference. But last shift, while reviewing footage, I noticed something that keeps replaying in my head. The blanket stopped moving. Then a tiny hand, pale, small, and twitching, slipped out from underneath it. And it wasn't alone. 3 other blankets in the room began rising and falling, all at once. If you're watching this, tell me what you think is happening in that room, because I don't think those monitors malfunctioned. I think something in that wing never left. If this story creeped you out, hit like, comment your thoughts, and subscribe, because there are more true stories just like this one. Sleep well, if you can.
The wheelchair always stayed in the same corner of the abandoned hallway until one night. It wasn't, and the trail leading away from it looked disturbingly fresh. I never believed in hauntings, even though my job put me in places most people wouldn't dare go alone. I'm a night shift maintenance worker at St. Mary's Hospital, an old building with a new wing attached to the front and a forgotten, unused floor deep in the back. That abandoned section used to be the psychiatric unit before the hospital relocated those patients to a newer, safer part of the facility. The old wing was shut down over 10 years ago. The rooms were locked, supplies left behind, and lights disconnected, except for emergency power. Almost nobody goes there, except for me. My job requires weekly inspections of unused sections just to make sure there's no structural damage, flooding, or trespassing. For months, everything was quiet, until the night I saw the wheelchair. I was doing my usual rounds around 2:15 a.m. when I heard something echo from down the dark corridor of the old psych wing. A dull, metallic sound. Clink, 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 almost like something metal hitting tile flooring. I stopped walking. Nobody was supposed to be down there. I turned on my flashlight and slowly walked toward the hallway entrance. The temperature dropped immediately. The air felt heavier, almost wet, like stepping into a basement that had been sealed for decades. And that's when I saw it. At the end of the hallway, illuminated only by my flashlight beam, sat a single wheelchair, old, rusted, torn leather seat, and smeared across the armrests and footrests was something dark and dried. Blood, at least. That's what it looked like. But what bothered me most wasn't the wheelchair itself. It was the fact that I had never seen it there before. Last week, the hallway was completely empty. I stepped closer, my heart pounding. The metallic sound echoed again, this time louder. Clink, clink, but the wheelchair was perfectly still. I forced myself to inspect it. Up close, the stains on the chair looked darker, tacky, and not old like I expected. Fresh, that made no sense. Nobody used this section. No one. I pulled my phone out to take a picture, but before I could unlock it, I heard something breathing, not right beside me, but somewhere farther down the dark hallway. Slow, uneven, wheezing. I froze. "Hello," I called out, trying to sound calm. No answer, just more breathing, then something else. A soft squeak, rubber wheels moving. I looked down. The wheelchair shifted just an inch, but enough that one wheel rotated slightly toward me. My stomach flipped. That hallway suddenly felt endless. I backed up slowly, keeping my flashlight locked on the chair. That's when the overhead PA system, dead 4 years, crackled alive above me. A distorted voice whispered, "Put it back." I ran. I told myself I imagined the voice, lack of sleep, stress, darkness playing tricks on me. But when I came back for next week's inspection, I already felt on edge, and the chair, it wasn't where I left it. This time it was in the hallway intersection, sitting directly under a flickering emergency light. Worse, a dark streaky trail stretched behind it, something thick, dragged across the floor. I crouched down to look more closely. The smear led into one of the patient rooms. The door was cracked open. I swallowed hard and approached, flashlight trembling in my grip. Inside, the room was nearly empty except for an old hospital bed with torn restraints still attached. The wall tiles had faint scratches, almost like someone had clawed at them. My light scanned the floor. That's when I saw footprints, bare, small, and bloody, leading toward the corner, where something crouched. I couldn't see it clearly, just a shape, small, hunched, facing the wall. My voice cracked. Are you hurt?" Slowly, the figure stiffened as if it had been waiting for acknowledgement. Then, in the quietest, weakest voice I'd ever heard, it whispered, "Help me back to my chair." Before I could respond, the PA system above me hissed again. This time, the voice wasn't distorted. It was angry, violent. "Leave." My flashlight flickered violently, then died. Something scraped behind me, a fast rolling sound. The wheelchair. I sprinted out so fast I nearly fell. Behind me I heard wheels spinning, metal hitting walls, something dragging itself across the floor. I didn't look back. When I burst into the lit hallway of the operating wing, everything went silent. No breathing, no scraping, no wheels, just hospital air, cold and normal. The next day I reported what I found. Security checked the area. They said there was no wheelchair, no footprints, no stains, nothing. But 2 weeks later, while reviewing camera feeds, one of the overnight nurses called me to a station. She pointed at her monitor. Camera angle. The dark psych hallway. There it was, the wheelchair. Right where I'd first seen it, facing the camera, and this time sitting in it, was a figure. Small, motionless, head tilted, watching. If this story made you look over your shoulder, hit like, drop a comment with your theory, and subscribe for more true nightmare fuel. Sleep tight, and try not to think about the wheels approaching your door.